My husband made me give up my seat for a stray dog, so I took everything he had. Elliot's family were traditionalists. Old school, set in their ways. The world was better in 1985 kind of traditionalists. Every Thanksgiving, without fail, they insisted the whole family gather at the old Dawson homestead, a creaky farmhouse on the outskirts of a small southern town that smelled like mothballs and expired opinions. According to Donna, my mother-in-law, spending Thanksgiving anywhere else was an insult to the family legacy. I would have been happy to fly, but flights were booked solid, and Elliot insisted on driving. "It'll be a nice family road trip," he said, as if 6 hours in a packed SUV with his parents was anyone's idea of nice. Then Megan Holloway found out we were driving Megan, Elliot's high school sweetheart, the golden girl of their little hometown, blonde hair, big blue eyes, a voice so soft you'd think she was perpetually on the verge of tears. She had this way of making everything about her while somehow convincing everyone she was the most selfless person in the room. She called Elliot the night before we left. "Oh my gosh, Elliot, what a coincidence. I am heading home for Thanksgiving too, but my car broke down and I just can't find a rental anywhere. Would it be too much trouble if I rode with y'all?" "Of course," Elliot said. "Yes, he didn't even ask me." The next morning, I walked out to the driveway to find Megan already standing by the passenger door, overnight bag in hand, smiling like she'd been invited to a garden party. "Haley, I hope you don't mind," she said sweetly, sliding into the front seat before I could respond. "I get so carsick in the back. I can only sit up front, or I'll be miserable the whole way." I looked at Elliot. He gave me that look, the one that said, "Don't start. It is just a seat." "Haley, why do you always have to make everything into a thing?" "From the back seat," Donna chimed in. "Oh, let her have it, honey. She is practically family. You are the wife. You should be the bigger person." Earl, my father-in-law, didn't even look up from his phone. "Just get in the car. We're burning daylight." So I squeezed into the back seat between my 62-year-old father-in-law and my 60-year-old mother-in-law, while Elliot's high school girlfriend sat up front in my seat, adjusting my mirror and connecting her phone to my Bluetooth. I said nothing. I had gotten very good at saying nothing. 3 years of marriage will do that to you. When I met Elliot, I thought I'd found my person. He was handsome, the kind of handsome that makes you stupid. Strong jaw, easy smile, the build of a former athlete who still remembered how to fill out a shirt. He was charming and confident, and when he looked at me, I felt like the only woman in the world. "I'll take care of you, Haley," he told me the night he proposed. "You'll never have to worry about anything. I'll be your driver, your protector, your home. All you have to do is be mine." I believed him. I was 29, orphaned at 25, and desperately lonely. My parents had died in a car accident, leaving me a trust fund, several properties, and a boutique hotel management company that I'd since grown into a thriving business. I had money, I had success. What I didn't have was a family. Elliot gave me that, or at least the illusion of one. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't joining his family. I was being absorbed by it. We were about 4 hours into the drive when Elliot pulled into a rest stop off the interstate. One of those bleak, middle-of-nowhere places. A gas station, a convenience store, and a lot of empty pavement stretching out under a gray November sky. Donna needed the restroom. Earl wanted coffee. Elliot went to stretch his legs, and Megan found a dog. It was a small thing, black, scrawny, shivering under a bench near the dumpsters, a mutt, maybe part lab, with big dark eyes and ribs you could count from 10 feet away. Megan's reaction was instantaneous and theatrical. Oh my God. She dropped to her knees, scooping the trembling animal into her arms. "Oh, you poor baby, you poor sweet little thing, Elliot. Look at him, he is freezing." She cradled the dog against her chest, and I swear actual tears began rolling down her cheeks. "We have to take him with us. We can't leave him here. He'll die." I stepped forward. "Megan, the car is already full. 5 people is the legal limit. If we add a dog, we're over capacity. We could get pulled over." She didn't even look at me. Her eyes were locked on Elliot, wide and glistening. "Elliot, please. If we leave him here, he'll freeze to death tonight. He is just a baby. He hasn't even had a chance at life." She unwound her own scarf and wrapped it around the dog, her hands trembling. Whether from cold or performance, I couldn't tell. Elliot's face softened. He walked to the car, grabbed my blanket, the wool throw that had been my mother's, the one I kept in the back seat every winter, and draped it over Megan's shoulders. "Don't worry," he said gently, his hand lingering on her arm. "I won't let him die out here. But you need to stay warm too. You are already shaking." Then he turned to me. The tenderness vanished. "Haley, how can you be this cold? It is a living creature. It is freezing and starving, and all you can think about is a traffic ticket. What is wrong with you?" I stared at him. I hadn't said we should leave the dog to die. I had offered a practical concern, but somehow, in the span of 30 seconds, I had been recast as the villain. I took a breath and tried again. "If you really want to help the dog, we can buy some food from the convenience store and leave it here. We can talk to the clerk, leave some money, ask them to keep an eye on it until we can call a rescue." "But our car is full, Ellie. That is the limit." I thought I was being reasonable. Megan thought otherwise. "Haley." Her voice dripped with wounded disbelief. "You want to just dump him on a stranger, hand over some cash, and hope for the best? How do you know they'll actually take care of him? What if they just take the money and ignore him? What happens to Shadow then?" Shadow, she had named the dog. In under 5 minutes, she had named the dog. "How can a little puppy survive out here alone?" she continued, her voice rising with righteous indignation. "I know money solves everything for people like you, Haley, but you can't just throw cash at a living being and walk away. Don't you see him shivering? How can you be so heartless?" I looked at her for a long moment, then I smiled. "You know what, Megan? You are absolutely right." She blinked, caught off guard by my agreement. "So why don't you give Shadow your seat?" The color drained from her face. "You can't expect Earl and Donna to get out," I continued, my voice perfectly pleasant. "They're in their 60s. It is freezing, that would be cruel. But since you feel so strongly about this dog, since his life is so important to you, why don't I take Shadow and you stay here? I am sure the convenience store clerk would be happy to keep an eye on you too." Megan's mouth opened and closed. She looked at Elliot with wide, panicked eyes. He didn't disappoint. "Haley, that is completely out of line." His voice was sharp, protective. "You want to leave a young woman alone at a highway rest stop, in the middle of nowhere. If something happened to her, how would I live with myself? How would I explain it to her family?" "How would you explain it to her family? Not, how would I explain it to anyone? Her family specifically. I used to think Elliot was just one of those guys who didn't know how to show affection, emotionally clumsy, bad at reading the room. I made excuses for him the way women do. He is tired, he is stressed, he doesn't mean it like that. But standing in that parking lot, watching him shield Megan from the cold, while I stood in the wind, I finally understood. He wasn't clueless, he just didn't care about me. When it came to Megan, he was thoughtful, attentive, protective, everything he had promised to be for me and never was. He noticed when she was cold, he worried about her safety. He anticipated her needs before she even voiced them. For me, he had nothing, not even the basic decency of pretending. I crossed my arm. He didn't hesitate, not even for a second. He took the dog from Megan, placed it in the car, and turned to me with the expression of a man delivering a perfectly reasonable verdict. Haley, just call an Uber. You'll actually be more comfortable. You won't have to be crammed in the back with mom and dad. Think of it as an upgrade. He smiled like he was doing me a favor. From inside the car, I heard Donna's voice. Oh Lord, what is that? A stray, Elliot. It is already tight back here. Where is that animal supposed to go? Elliot leaned in, patient and reassuring. Don't worry, Mom. Haley's not riding with us. There'll be plenty of room. Just like that one sentence, and I was erased, and not a single person in that car said a word in my defense. You want me to give up my seat, I said slowly, pointing at myself, then at the dog. For a stray. Elliot looked at me like I was being unreasonable. Mom and Dad are in their 60s. Haley, you want to dump them at a rest stop? What kind of daughter-in-law does that? And Megan has a weak constitution. She has been dealing with health issues all year. If she gets stranded out here and something happens, that is on you. I am trying to be fair here. Can you please stop making this harder than it needs to be? Then came the part that really twisted the knife. And honestly, if you knew how to drive, none of this would even be an issue. I've been behind the wheel for 4 hours straight. I am exhausted, but do you ever think about that number? Because everything is always about you. I stood very still. He was right about one thing. I didn't drive. I never had. Growing up, my family had it. And when Elliot came into my life, he made it sound romantic. You'll never need to drive, Haley. That is my job. I'll always be in the driver's seat, and you'll always be right beside me. Now, not only had he given my seat to another woman, but my inability to drive, the very thing he once called charming, had become his weapon against me. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, crack. Like ice on a lake just before it gives way. He worried about his aging parents. He worried about his fragile high school sweetheart. He worried about a stray dog he'd known for 5 minutes. But me, his wife, the woman who paid for the car he was driving, the house he was going home to, and the turkey he expected to find on the table. I was less than an afterthought. I was an inconvenience. So what about me, Elliot? He was already walking to the driver's side. He didn't even turn around. You are a grown woman, Haley. Figure it out. You've got your phone. Call an Uber. Call a cab. I don't care. Just stop acting like a child. He opened the passenger door for Megan, offering his hand to help her in. Come on, get inside. It is too cold for you out here. Megan settled into the seat, my seat, and looked at me through the window. She tilted her head the way people do when they're pretending to feel sorry for you. Haley, I knew you'd understand. You are such a good person deep down. Shadow is so lucky. This is really a beautiful thing you are doing. Her words said thank you. Her eyes said I win. Them warm inside the car. Me standing alone in the freezing wind the contrast was so sharp it almost felt like a movie. The kind where you are screaming at the screen for the heroine to wake up. Elliot. My voice was calm, eerily calm. Do you even remember who your wife is? His jaw tightened. He didn't look at me. Even if you are my wife, you can't keep being this difficult. Pause. Even if you are my wife, even if he said that out loud in front of witnesses, not because you are my wife, I should treat you better. Number, even if, like her existence in his life was a technicality he was tolerating, that is not a slip of the tongue. That is a confession. He'd already demoted her in his mind. The divorce papers were just the paperwork catching up. I am not asking you to walk home. I am asking you to call a car. Why are you turning this into World War III, Haley? When are you going to learn to be reasonable? He slammed his door shut and started the engine. Instead of standing there arguing, you should be booking a ride. Don't make everyone late for Thanksgiving dinner. At the mention of dinner, Donna leaned toward the window. Oh, Haley, pick up some fresh rosemary on your way, would you? The turkey needs it. And check if the store has those good dinner rolls, the brioche ones. Not the cheap kind. Earl added his order without looking up. My doctor says I need to watch my cholesterol. Make sure the gravy is light this year. And don't forget the pecan pie. None of that store-bought nonsense. They had just watched their son abandon me at a highway rest stop, and their first thought was the menu. Megan, still glowing with victory, couldn't resist one final twist. Can Haley really make all that by herself? She looked at Elliot with exaggerated concern. He nodded, like it was a fact of nature, like I was a kitchen appliance that came with the house. Megan's eyes lit up. She leaned out the window, her smile razor sharp beneath its sweetness. In that case, I'd love your sweet potato casserole, the one with the marshmallows on top. Elliot says it is amazing. Then she rolled up the window. Elliot didn't give me another glance. He put the car in drive, and the SUV pulled away, gravel crunching under the tires. I stood there and watched until the taillights disappeared into the gray horizon. The wind cut through my jacket. I had no blanket. Elliot had given it to Megan. I had no car. I had no ride. I was standing alone at a rest stop in the middle of nowhere on the day before Thanksgiving, and my husband had just chosen a stray dog over me. Number that wasn't quite right. He had chosen everyone over me. The dog was just the final insult. My phone rang 20 minutes later. It was Elliot. I almost laughed. For one delusional second, I thought maybe he had realized what he'd done. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Maybe he was turning the car around. I answered. What is taking you so long? Have you even called an Uber yet? What are you good for, Haley? Also, Megan's not feeling well, so I have to drive slower. That means you need to get there first. Tell the driver to step on it. The turkey needs to be in the oven by 3, or it won't be ready for dinner. Mom wants her green bean casserole made from scratch. Dad wants his pecan pie. And don't forget Megan's sweet potato casserole. Extra marshmallows. We're all exhausted from the drive. Just get it done. He wasn't calling to check on me. He was calling to give me my orders. I used to be someone who never set foot in a kitchen. Growing up, we had a private chef. I didn't learn to cook until after I married Elliot. We'd always had a housekeeper, but Donna claimed she didn't trust strangers touching her food and insisted that I, the daughter-in-law, cook every family meal personally. When I complained, Elliot shut me down with the same line every time. Mom and Dad worked hard their whole lives, Haley. They just want to feel taken care of by their family. Is that really so much to ask? Just do it for them, for me. With that one guilt trip, he outsourced his filial duty onto my shoulders. For 3 years, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Sunday dinner when his parents visited, I couldn't even ask Elliot to help chop an onion because Donna would swoop in and declare, a man doesn't belong in the kitchen on Thanksgiving. That is women's work. And physically steer him back to the couch. In their eyes, Donna's, Earl's, and even Elliot's, I wasn't a wife. I wasn't a daughter-in-law. I was the help, standing in that empty parking lot, listening to my husband bark orders at me like I was his personal catering service. I felt the last thread of something snap, not my heart, that had cracked earlier. This was something else, something deeper. It was the part of me that still believed this marriage was worth saving. Elliot destroyed it with his own hands, and he didn't even notice. A profound clarity washed over me, the kind that comes not with tears, but with silence, with stillness, with the sudden blinding realization that you've been living someone else's life and you are done. If the love was gone, if it had ever been there at all, why was I keeping this man around? To cook his turkey, to warm his bed, to fund his lifestyle while he gave his heart to someone else. I was done being the woman who said nothing. I hung up on Elliot then I sent a text to my lawyer. Start the divorce papers. Infidelity clause. I want everything the prenup entitles me to. Happy Thanksgiving. I looked at the empty highway stretching out in both directions. And I smiled, then I dialed 911. I'd like to report an incident. My husband intentionally abandoned me at a highway rest stop. The state trooper arrived in under 20 minutes. He was a tall man with a weathered face and kind eyes, the sort of person who'd seen enough of the world to be unsurprised by its cruelty, but still bothered by it. Ma'am, are you Haley Whitfield? I am. And your husband left you here voluntarily? He needed my seat for a stray dog. The trooper stared at me for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly, the way people do when they've just heard something that confirms their lowest expectations of humanity. All right, ma'am, let's get you where you need to go. He drove me himself. Lights on, cruiser warm, heat blasting. As the miles rolled by, my phone rang again and again. Elliot's name flashing on the screen. I knew exactly what he wanted, not to check if I was safe, not to apologize, but to remind me about the dinner rolls and the Rosemary and Megan's precious sweet potato casserole. I turned off my phone. The world went quiet. It was the most peaceful I'd felt in 3 years. The trooper delivered me right to the front door of the old Dawson homestead. He even walked me up the porch steps. The moment the door opened, Elliot's voice hit me like a wall. Finally, do you have any idea what time it is? Mom and Dad have been sitting here starving, waiting for you to start cooking. The turkey isn't even prepped. Is this how a wife behaves? Is this how a daughter-in-law? He stopped, because standing behind me were 2 state troopers in full uniform. Elliot's entire demeanor shifted, the anger drained from his face, replaced by something I'd never seen on him before, uncertainty of fissures. He straightened up, smoothing his shirt. Can I help you? The trooper who'd driven me looked Elliot up and down with the quiet assessment of a man who'd pulled over 1,000 liars on the highway. Are you the one who left your wife at a rest stop off I-85? Elliot's mouth opened, closed, opened again. It wasn't like that. She was supposed to call an Uber. I told her to. Sir, the trooper's voice was flat. You left your wife alone at a highway rest stop the day before Thanksgiving. No car, no ride arranged, in 38-degree weather. Does that sound like responsible behavior to you? Elliot glanced at me, and I saw it, the flash of fury. Not at himself. At me for telling. She called you? His voice was tight. She actually called the police over a seat. The trooper ignored the question. I'd suggest you think a little harder about your priorities, sir. Your wife shouldn't need a police escort to get home from a family road trip. If we get another call like this, it won't be a conversation. It'll be a citation. Are we clear? Elliot had no choice but to nod. Yes, sir, of course, it was a misunderstanding. Didn't sound like a misunderstanding to me. The trooper tipped his hat to me. Ma'am, you have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you, officer, I intend to. The troopers left. The door closed, and Elliot turned on me. Are you out of your mind? His voice was a barely contained explosion. You called the cops on your own husband on Thanksgiving Eve? Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? If the neighbors saw, if anyone from town finds out, how am I supposed to show my face? I looked at him. You weren't ashamed to do it. but you are ashamed of people knowing. Before he could continue, Earl's voice cut through from the living room. Haley, do you even consider yourself part of this family? He was sitting in the recliner, arms crossed, wearing the expression of a man whose authority had been mildly inconvenienced. Your parents are gone. God rest their souls. It was this family that took you in. Elliot could have married anyone, but he chose you. And this is how you repay us, calling the police on Thanksgiving, instead of being in that kitchen where you belong. Donna was already in full performance mode, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I told you, Elliot, I told you not to marry a city girl. They don't know the first thing about family. Look at her. Can't cook a meal without complaining. Can't ride in a car without causing drama. Megan would never behave like this. Megan brought me fruit from the rest stop. Did you know that? She thought of me. She always thinks of others. She pulled Megan into a side hug, patting her arm like she was the real daughter-in-law. Megan, for her part, was sitting on the couch looking angelic, shadow curled up in her lap. The dog had already tracked muddy paw prints across the hardwood floor and chewed the corner of a throw pillow. Megan looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. Well, since Haley's finally here, she should probably get started on dinner. Everyone's been waiting so long. We're all just starving. She smiled. I smiled back. Okay, I said. The room went quiet for a beat. They hadn't expected agreement. They'd expected a fight, tears, maybe a dramatic exit they could gossip about for years. Instead, I walked toward the kitchen, calm as a Sunday morning. Behind me, I heard them settle back into the couch. The television clicked on, some football pregame show. Donna started chatting with Megan about pie recipes. Earl cracked open a beer. Elliot put his feet up on my coffee table, kings and queens on their thrones, waiting to be served. Then came Elliot's voice, casual and entitled, like he was placing an order at a restaurant. It is Thanksgiving, Haley. We need the full spread. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, the works, and grab a bottle of that bourbon Dad likes from the cabinet. Oh, Mom and Megan only drink white wine, so open one of those too. I turned toward the kitchen counter and accidentally knocked a bottle of olive oil off the edge. It hit the tile floor and shattered, sending a river of golden oil across the kitchen. Donna shrieked from the living room. What was that, Haley? Are you breaking things on Thanksgiving? That is terrible luck. What is wrong with you? Were you raised in a barn? Elliot appeared in the kitchen doorway, looked at the mess, looked at me, and shook his head with theatrical disappointment. You are so clumsy, clean it up. Then he turned and walked away. Oh, I would clean up the mess, but not the olive oil. I pulled out my phone and called the HOA management office. Hello, this is Haley Whitfield, unit owner at the Dawson property. I have unauthorized persons in my home who are refusing to leave. I need assistance. The HOA manager arrived within 30 minutes, accompanied by 2 security officers from the community's private patrol service. Elliot opened the door, confused. Can I help you? The manager, a polite, efficient woman in a navy blazer, smiled professionally. Good evening, sir. We're from the Homeowners Association. We received a complaint from the property owner regarding unauthorized occupants. We're here to look into it. Elliot frowned. He turned to his parents. Mom, Dad, did either of you call the HOA? They shook their heads, equally bewildered. Megan clutched Shadow tighter, her eyes darting between Elliot and the officers. Elliot turned back to the manager, irritation creeping into his voice. Nobody here called you. You've got the wrong house. Maybe double-check your records before you go bothering homeowners on Thanksgiving. I called them. Every head in the room turned to me. Elliot's face went dark. Haley first, the police. Now the Hoe. What is your problem? It is Thanksgiving. Can you not go one single holiday without creating chaos? Are you trying to ruin this for everyone? I looked at him. You deserve a good holiday. I turned to the manager. I'd like everyone in this house removed. The manager hesitated, glancing between me and Elliot. Elliot exploded. Are you insane? This is my house. You have no right to kick me out of my own home. Instead of being in the kitchen doing your job, you are out here putting on a show. This is pathetic, Haley, even for you. Donna rose from the couch, trembling with indignation. This is our family home. How dare you try to throw us out? If anyone should leave, it is you. Earl pointed a thick finger at me. You've lost your mind, girl. This is our son's house. You are just the wife. Megan, never one to miss her cue, added softly. This is Elliot's home, Haley. You can't just remove people from their own home. That is not how it works. I didn't look at any of them. I looked at the HOA manager. You can verify the property ownership, can't you? She nodded, pulling up her tablet. Of course, let me check the records. A few taps, a pause. The property is registered to a Miss Haley Whitfield. Sole owner. There is also a prenuptial agreement on file with our legal office, designating this as separate property. The room went very, very quiet. Well then, I said, my voice clear and steady. Since I am the sole owner of this property, I have every legal right to ask these people to leave, don't I? The manager looked at Elliot, looked at me, looked at her tablet. Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Haley, it started. If they refuse to leave voluntarily, I continued, I'd like you to contact the sheriff's office to assist with removal. Elliot lunged forward. You wouldn't dare. I met his eyes. Try me. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was Shadow whimpering softly in Megan's arms. Then Elliot tried a different approach. He softened his voice, the way he did when he wanted something. Haley, baby, come on. Let's not do this in front of strangers. We're family. Whatever's going on between us, we can work it out. Just let's sit down and talk, please. 2 years ago, it might have made me hesitate. Tode, it sounded like a foreign language. You eat my food, I said quietly. You drink my wine. You live in the house that I bought, drive the car that I paid for, and wear the watch I gave you for your birthday. You are a freeloader, Elliot, and you had the audacity to bring your mistress into my home for Thanksgiving. The word mistress landed like a grenade. The HOA manager's eyebrows shot up. The security officers exchanged a glance. Even Donna stopped mid-protest, her mouth hanging open. Megan turned scarlet. How dare you? I am not his mistress. That is slander. I could sue you. I raised an eyebrow. You are not his mistress. You don't go home to your own family on Thanksgiving. Instead, you ride shotgun in another woman's car, sleep under another woman's roof, and order another woman to cook you sweet potato casserole. What exactly would you call that? Megan, she sputtered. We're just friends, Elliot, and I have been friends since high school. Yes, I know. The whole town knows. That is kind of the problem. Megan's lip trembled. She looked at Elliot with those big, helpless eyes. Right on cue, he stepped in front of her. That is enough, Haley. You are embarrassing yourself. Megan is a guest in this house, and you will treat her with respect. This is my house, Elliot, and she is not my guest. She is yours. I turned to the security officers. Please escort them out. The officers looked at the manager. She nodded. Sir, ma'am, one of the officers said, stepping forward. We're going to need you to gather your belongings and vacate the property. Donna burst into tears. Real ones this time, or at least a convincing imitation. This is an outrage. We're being thrown out of our own son's house on Thanksgiving. What kind of woman does this? Earl grabbed his coat, muttering about the decline of American values and women who don't know their place. Elliot stood his ground in the doorway. I am not leaving. We are married, Haley. Until we're not, I have rights. I pulled out my phone and held it up. The sheriff's office is one call away, Elliot. Your choice. Walk out with your dignity or get escorted out without it. He stared at me. I stared back. For the first time in 3 years, he blinked first. This isn't over, he said through gritted teeth. Oh, I know, I replied. It is just beginning. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out. Donna and Earl followed. Donna still weeping loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. Megan hurried after them, clutching her overnight bag, her face a mask of humiliation. As Elliot passed through the door, he reached for the car keys on the hook. I snatched them first. Sorry. I bought the car too. If you take it, that is theft. He stared at me, jaw clenched. Fists balled at his sides for a moment. I thought he might actually hit me. The security officers must have thought so too, because they stepped closer. But Elliot wasn't stupid enough to swing in front of witnesses. He turned and walked out into the cold November night, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. The house went silent. I stood in the foyer, listening to the sound of their footsteps fading down the driveway. Donna's wailing, Earl's grumbling, Elliot's furious voice on his phone, already calling someone, a relative, probably, to spin his version of events. And then quiet, real quiet, the kind I hadn't heard in 3 years. I looked down. Shadow was sitting at my feet, tail wagging, looking up at me with those big dark eyes. They had fought so hard to bring him into the car, made me give up my seat for him. And then, in the chaos of being thrown out, they had forgotten him completely. I knelt down and scratched behind his ears. Looks like they didn't love you that much after all, buddy. Shadow licked my hand. Yeah, I said, I know the feeling. I spent the next hour cleaning the house from top to bottom. I gathered every item that belonged to Elliot, his parents, or Megan, clothes, toiletries, Earl's reading glasses, Donna's knitting bag, Megan's scarf, and packed them into garbage bags. I dropped them off with the HOA office for donation. Shadow got a warm bath, a good brushing, and a bowl of food. By the time I was done, the Thai takeout I'd ordered had arrived. Pad Thai, spring rolls, and mango sticky rice. I set it all out on the coffee table, turned on the television, and found the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade replay. Just me and Shadow, sitting on the couch, watching giant balloons float down a New York City street. I had pad thai, Shadow had kibble. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in 3 years. Not long after, my phone rang. It was the manager of the boutique hotel I owned in the next town over. Miss Whitfield, I am sorry to bother you on the holiday. We have a situation. I sat up, muting the television. What kind of situation? There is a man at the front desk claiming to be your husband. He is demanding a complimentary suite for himself, 2 elderly guests, and a young woman. He has been quite vocal. I could hear Elliot's voice bleeding through the phone, muffled but unmistakable. What is taking so long? Do you know who I am? I am Haley Whitfield's husband. I practically run this place. Get your manager out here right now. Is this how you treat VIP guests? When I get back to the office, heads are going to roll. And then, like a backing track to his ego, Megan's voice chimed in. This is Mr. Dawson. He is basically management here. How can you be a front desk clerk and not recognize him? He could have you fired with 1 phone call, you know. I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. The audacity, the sheer, breathtaking audacity, kicked out of my house, and their first move was to march into my hotel and demand the royal treatment, using my name, throwing my weight around as if they had any weight to throw. "You received the memo I sent out this afternoon?" I asked the manager. "Yes, ma'am," he whispered. "The entire staff has been briefed." "Then proceed as instructed." "Yes, Miss Whitfield. Happy Thanksgiving." "Happy Thanksgiving." I hung up and took another bite of pad thai. On the television, a giant Snoopy balloon was drifting past Macy's shadow, was asleep with his head on my lap. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. "Elliot," I almost didn't answer, but curiosity and, I'll admit, a certain dark amusement got the better of me. "Zoe Haley," he caught himself. "Interesting. Was this you? Did you tell them to turn us away? You won't even let us stay in a hotel. Don't you think this is going too far?" I leaned back into the couch, stroking Shadow's ear. "Paying to stay in a hotel is a perfectly normal thing to do, Elliot." My tone shifted. "But are you paying, Silence? If you'd like to book a room at the standard holiday rate, the front desk would be happy to assist you. I believe it is $389 a night per room plus tax." More silence. I could practically hear him doing the math. 4 people. Thanksgiving rates. A wallet that had been living off my credit cards for 3 years. This is Haley. I am your husband." I smiled at the television. A comedian was doing a bit about family dysfunction. How fitting. "You know, Elliot, it is funny. When you were leaving me at a rest stop in the middle of nowhere, you didn't seem to remember you had a wife. When you were handing my mother's blanket to another woman, you didn't remember. When you were ordering me to cook a feast for your girlfriend, you didn't remember. But now that you need a free hotel room, suddenly it all comes flooding back." I let the silence stretch. "Anyone would think I was your personal ATM. And honestly, I guess I was. I gave you everything you ever wanted, and you were never grateful, not once. You acted like it was your God." "Haley, check your email when you get a chance." "What?" "The divorce papers. My lawyer sent them over about an hour ago. Once they're signed, we'll have no relationship at all, which means no more free hotels, no more free cars, no more free life." I paused. "Happy Thanksgiving, Elliot." I hung up then. I blocked his number, blocked his email, blocked him on every social media platform I could think of. I picked a piece of chicken from my spring roll and held it out to Shadow. He took it gently, tail wagging. "You are so much better company," I told him. He looked up at me with those big dark eyes, and I swear he understood. Sometimes animals are more loyal than people. You give them a piece of chicken, and they look at you like you hung the moon. They don't ask for your credit card. They don't give your seat to someone else. They don't make you feel like you are invisible in your own life. Unlike Elliot, who could never be satisfied, who always wanted more, who took and took and took until there was nothing left, and then blamed me for being empty. He wanted everything. I was going to make sure he got nothing. The countdown to midnight wasn't really a thing on Thanksgiving, but I stayed up late anyway. Shadow and I watched old movies, the kind where the woman always wins in the end, and I ate leftover sticky rice straight from the container. Around 11, I was scrolling through my phone when I happened to open Instagram. Megan had posted. The photo showed her sitting at a cramped kitchen table in what looked like a relative's house. Elliot was beside her, arm around her shoulder. Donna and Earl flanked them on either side. Paper plates, canned cranberry sauce, a store-bought pie still in its plastic shell. The caption read, "Home is wherever your people are. Number blessed, number family first, number Thanksgiving family." She called them family. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I smiled. and took a screenshot. The evidence I needed to make sure Elliot Dawson left this marriage with absolutely nothing had just been hand-delivered by the other woman herself. I saved it to 3 different cloud accounts, emailed it to my lawyer, and went to bed. Shadow curled up at my feet. The house was warm. The world was quiet. I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, Black Friday, how appropriate. I was still in bed when a thunderous pounding shook the front door. Bang, bang, bang. Shadow leapt off the bed, barking. I pulled on a robe and padded to the foyer. I opened the door. Elliot stood on my porch, jaw set, eyes blazing. He didn't wait for an invitation. He shoved past me, strode into my living room, and dropped onto my couch like he owned the place. Which was ironic, because he literally owned nothing in it. Behind him came the parade, Donna, Earl, and a crowd of Dawson relatives I vaguely recognized from the wedding, aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole Southern cavalry. 7 or 8 people filed into my living room, filling every seat, leaning against every wall. And there, bringing up the rear like the guest of honor at her own coronation, was Megan. The relatives started in immediately, their voices overlapping in a chorus of righteous indignation. Haley, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, throwing your husband and his parents out on Thanksgiving. What kind of woman does that? Is that how they raised you up north? No manners? No respect for family? His mama and daddy are in their 60s. You put them out in the cold on a holiday. Do you have a heart? Elliot told us everything. How you've been controlling him, keeping him under your thumb with your money. That is not a marriage, honey. That is a hostage situation. So that was the story Elliot had told. I was the villain, the cold, controlling rich wife who tormented her humble, hard-working husband and his salt-of-the-earth parents. He'd rallied the troops, brought backup, an intervention, Dawson style. Elliot sat in the center of it all, legs spread wide, cracking sunflower seeds from a bag he'd brought with him. He spat a shell onto my hardwood floor and looked up at me with the smug satisfaction of a man who believed he'd already won. Haley, I'll be honest, you went way too far yesterday. But I am a reasonable man. Family matters should stay private, so here is what is going to happen. He held up a finger for each demand. 1, you apologize to my parents sincerely. On your knees would be nice, but I'll settle for genuine remorse. A second finger. 2, you apologize to Megan. She has been nothing but kind to you, and you humiliated her. A third. 3, you give my parents $5,000 each for emotional distress, and Megan gets the same. She is very fragile, Haley. This has been incredibly hard on her. A fourth. 4, you give each of these relatives a little something for their trouble. They drove all the way out here on Black Friday to help us work this out. That deserves compensation. He leaned back, spreading his arms across the back of my couch. Do all that, and we can put this behind us. I'll still be a good husband to you. We'll start fresh. He spat another shell onto my floor. The room waited. Every eye was on me, the relatives, the in-laws. Megan perched on the arm of a chair, watching with barely concealed glee. They were all waiting for me to fold, to cry, to apologize, to write the checks and resume my position as the family doormat. I looked at Elliot, lounging on my sofa. Are you reluctant to leave me, Elliot? You are reluctant to leave my money. Of course he was. Since Elliot had been with me, his family's standard of living had skyrocketed. His parents went from a cramped apartment to holidays in my properties. Elliot went from a mid-level salary to designer watches and a luxury SUV. Even his relatives had benefited. I'd paid for a cousin's wedding, an uncle's surgery, a niece's college tuition. And not once, not a single time, had any of them said thank you. They didn't see generosity. They saw obligation. They didn't see a person. They saw a bank account with legs. I stared at Elliot for a long, quiet moment. It was Shadow who broke the silence. He padded out from behind my legs, planted himself between me and Elliot, and growled, low, steady, the kind of growl that starts in the chest and means business. Then he barked twice, sharp and loud. Elliot's face darkened. He reached for the dog. Ungrateful mutt. If it wasn't for me, you'd be dead in a ditch. Now you are turning on me. I should have left you at that rest stop. Shadow yelped and scrambled behind me, still barking. I looked at the scene, the dog cowering behind me, the man who'd saved, it now threatening to hurt it, and something clicked into place with perfect, crystalline clarity. I took in a stray dog, I said quietly, and the dog knows to be grateful. I took care of you for 3 years, and you don't even know the meaning of the word. Before Elliot could respond, I turned to face the crowd of relatives. I am filing for divorce from Elliot. The grounds are infidelity. The room went still. It seemed Elliot hadn't included that detail in his version of events. The relatives looked at each other, then at Elliot, confusion, replacing their righteous anger. I didn't give them time to regroup. As for the other woman, I gestured toward Megan with a slight tilt of my chin. I believe you all met her yesterday. She spent Thanksgiving with my husband. She posted a family photo with him on Instagram last night. She has been riding in my car, sleeping under my roof, and ordering me to cook for her. And she is not his cousin. I pulled out my phone and held up the screenshot of Megan's Instagram post. The one with the caption, "Home is wherever your people are." Does this look like just friends to any of you? The relatives leaned in, squinting at the screen. Then they looked at Megan, then at Elliot, then at each other. Megan's face went from pink to crimson. That is, you are twisting things. It was just a photo. We're friends. Bless your heart, Megan, I said, borrowing her favorite phrase. Friends don't usually caption their photos with another woman's husband using a heart emoji and the word family. Elliot jumped to his feet. You are the one who is wrong here, Haley. Why do you always have to drag Megan into everything? She has nothing to do with our problems. But the damage was done. The relatives had seen the photo. They'd seen Megan sitting in this house like she belonged here. They'd watched Elliot defend her with more passion than he'd ever shown his own wife. The math wasn't hard. One by one, the relatives started finding reasons to leave. Well, Elliot, this sounds like it is between you two. We really shouldn't get involved in marital issues. My grandkids are waiting for me to take them to the Black Friday sales. Y'all work this out. I just remembered I left the oven on. Within 5 minutes, the living room had emptied. The Great Dawson cavalry had retreated without firing a single shot. Elliot watched them go, his face darkening with each departing relative. Useless, he muttered. Every last one of them. I almost laughed. He dragged them here as his army, and they deserted him the moment they realized he was the bad guy. I rolled my eyes. I must have been blind to fall for a man whose only real asset was a good jawline. Tired of the circus, I simply gestured toward the door. You can see yourself out. But Elliot had decided to dig in. He crossed his arms, planted his feet, and looked at me with the stubborn defiance of a man who had confused squatting with ownership. I am not going anywhere, Haley. We are legally married until a judge says otherwise. What is yours is mine. This house, this furniture, this life, it is half mine. That is how marriage works in this country. Not even the police can make me leave. He looked at me with a smirk, as if he'd just played an unbeatable card. I looked at him for a long moment. Are you sure you are not leaving? I am not leaving. then don't blame me for what comes next. I threw on a coat, scooped up Shadow, grabbed my purse, and walked out the front door. The moment I left, I pulled up the security camera feed on my phone. I'd had cameras installed throughout the property when I first bought it, a precaution my lawyer had recommended, and one I'd never been more grateful for. The feed showed Elliot's family celebrating like they just won the Super Bowl. Donna was in the kitchen, opening my cabinets, pulling out my good china. See, Elliot, I told you she'd back down. She always does. She just needs to be reminded who is in charge. Earl had found my liquor cabinet. He was pouring himself a generous glass of my 20-year-old bourbon. Let her throw her little tantrums. At the end of the day, she knows she needs us. Where else is she going to go? She has got no family of her own. Elliot was back on the couch, feet on my coffee table, scrolling through his phone. She'll cool off. She always does. By tonight, she'll be back here cooking dinner and pretending none of this happened. This is the moment that sealed it. Not the rest stop. Not the dog. This Haley is watching through security cameras as 3 adults and a mistress celebrate occupying her house, like it is a conquered territory. And Elliot's big prediction: she'll come back and cook dinner. That is not confidence. That is a man who has confused a woman's patience with permanent submission. He mistook her silence for agreement. Expensive mistake. And Megan had made herself completely at home. She was curled up in my favorite armchair, wrapped in my cashmere throw, sipping from one of my wine glasses. "You are so smart, Elliot," she cooed, leaning against him when he walked past. "You really know how to handle her. You just have to be firm. Show her who the man of the house is." Elliot bent down and kissed her right there. In my living room, on my couch, surrounded by my things, Megan giggled and buried her face in his chest. I watched the feed with a cold, steady calm. Since you are all so shameless, I might as well make you famous. I closed the camera app and opened Craigslist. I created a new listing, free, Thanksgiving leftovers, assorted household items, moving out, and need everything gone ASAP. Free furniture, electronics, kitchen appliances, and leftover Thanksgiving food. First come, first served. Don't even knock, just come on in. Address, Elliot's current location. I posted it. Then I opened Nextdoor, the neighborhood social media app that was basically a digital town square for suburban gossip. I created an anonymous post, EPSA, for the community. The man currently occupying the property at address is not the homeowner. He is the homeowner's estranged husband who moved his girlfriend into his wife's house for Thanksgiving after leaving his wife stranded at a highway rest stop to make room for a stray dog. If you see suspicious activity at this address, please be aware that the actual owner has filed for eviction. Happy holidays, neighbors. I hit post. Then I sat in my car parked down the street and waited. The Nextdoor post took off like wildfire. Within 20 minutes, it had over 100 reactions and dozens of comments. Wait, he left his wife at a rest stop for a dog and then moved his side piece in on Thanksgiving. I saw the police there yesterday. I knew Imagine freeloading off your wife and bringing your mistress home for the holidays. This is the most audacious thing I've ever read on this app. And I once saw someone post about stealing their neighbor's garden gnome. Property management, this kind of person doesn't belong in our community. What are our HOA fees even for? It is not even his house, and he is in the homeowner's group chat. Remove him. The HOA manager, who had been lurking silently in the community forum, removed Elliot's account with lightning speed. This time, they were very efficient. But the real show started when the Craigslist people arrived. The first knock came about 40 minutes after I posted. then another, then another. From my car, I watched through the security cameras as a bewildered Elliot opened the door to find a large man in a pickup truck. "Hey, I am here for the free couch. The one on Craigslist." "What, there is no free couch? What are you talking about?" "This is the address. It says free furniture. First come, first served. Is the sectional still available?" Or Elliot slammed the door. 5 minutes later, another knock, a woman with a minivan. "Hi, I am here for the kitchen appliances," the listing said. "There is no listing. Go away." Another knock, a college kid with a trailer. "Yo, is this the place with the free television?" Elliot was losing his mind. Every 5 minutes, a new stranger appeared at the door, waving a phone with the Craigslist ad. He'd slam the door, and another one would knock. Donna was having a meltdown. "Elliot, what is happening? Why do these people keep coming? Make it stop." Earl had barricaded himself in the bedroom. "This is insanity. Call the police." Megan was pressed against the wall, clutching Shadow like a security blanket. "Elliot, do something." Elliot tried calling the HOA. No answer. He tried calling property management. No answer. I had already sent the manager a generous holiday bonus with very specific instructions. Lock the doors and enjoy your day off. He had no choice but to go outside and deal with each visitor personally. I watched him standing on the porch in the cold wallet in hand, trying to pay people to leave and take down the ad, but every time he got rid of one, another appeared. From my car, I sipped my coffee and watched the show. By early afternoon, the entire neighborhood knew the names Elliot Dawson and Megan Holloway. Some homeowners had started posting photos of the Craigslist visitors lined up outside, turning the whole thing into a community spectacle. One neighbor commented on Nextdoor, "Better than Black Friday shopping. I've been watching from my window for 2 hours, 10 divided by 10 entertainment." Another wrote, "Summoning, bring popcorn to the cul-de-sac. This is the best thing that has happened on this street since the Hendersons' Christmas light feud of 2019. I almost laughed out loud. Meanwhile, inside my apartment, Elliot had graduated from frustrated to destructive. The security cameras showed him pacing the living room, kicking furniture, slamming cabinets. He swept a row of books off a shelf. He punched a hole in the drywall. He picked up a decorative vase, one I'd bought at an antique market in Charleston, and hurled it against the wall. I watched the vase shatter on camera and felt a cold, precise anger. Those are all things I paid for with my own money, and he seems to be enjoying breaking them. I stroked Shadow, who was sitting in the passenger seat beside me, watching the phone screen with his head tilted. "In that case," I said to him, "let's make sure he pays for every last piece." Shadow barked twice. What a clever little thing. After the show, I took Shadow back to my hotel for a proper meal. Room service, the works. He got a grilled chicken breast, cut into small pieces. I got a glass of wine and a steak. By evening, my lawyer had arrived in town with a full legal team, and behind them, a sheriff's deputy. It was time to reclaim my property. When I unlocked the front door with my fingerprint, the scene inside looked like a frat house after homecoming. Broken glass on the floor, a hole in the wall, food containers everywhere. My cashmere throw was stained with red wine. The antique vase was in pieces. Elliot was sprawled on the couch, but he sat up the moment he saw me. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair disheveled. He looked like a man who'd spent the day at war, which, in a sense, he had. "Why are you back?" he snapped. "I told you, we're still married. This is my home. You can't kick me out, and you can't kick out my parents or my guest." I shrugged, sat down in the one chair that hadn't been damaged, and nodded. "You know what, Elliot? I think you have a point. He blinked. Suspicion flickered across his face, but his ego won out. He straightened up, a smirk tugging at his lips. If you are here to apologize, my lawyer stepped forward. Mr. Dawson, I am Haley Whitfield's attorney. I am here to inform you that Miss Whitfield's legal team has initiated formal eviction proceedings against all current occupants of this property. As the sole owner, a status confirmed by the prenuptial agreement you signed prior to your marriage, Miss Whitfield has full legal authority to remove any unauthorized persons. He paused, letting the words land. Additionally, the sheriff's office has been notified. Deputy Harris is outside. If you do not vacate the premises voluntarily within the next 15 minutes, you will be escorted out and a formal trespassing complaint will be filed, which, I should mention, carries potential jail time in this state. The smirk died on Elliot's face. He shot up from the couch. What did you just say? He rushed toward me, eyes wild. You can't do this, we're married. The prenup, I never. That thing isn't even valid, my lawyer said. Your lawyer? I tilted my head. You mean the one you never actually hired because you couldn't afford the retainer? That lawyer. Elliot's mouth opened and closed. My lawyer continued, unfazed. The prenuptial agreement was reviewed and certified by independent counsel for both parties at the time of signing. It is fully enforceable. The property, the vehicles, and all business assets belong solely to Miss Whitfield. Mr. Dawson, you have no legal claim to any of it. Donna started wailing. This can't be happening, Elliot. Do something, she can't throw us out. We're your parents. This was supposed to be our retirement, Earl. For once, had nothing to say. He just stood there, gripping the back of a chair, his face gray. Megan was edging toward the door, her overnight bag already in hand. The survival instinct of a woman who knew when to abandon ship. Elliot turned to me, his voice cracking. Haley, you can't do this to me. I gave you 3 years of my life. I was your husband. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at him. You gave me 3 years, Elliot. What exactly did you give me? I paid for this house. I paid for the car. I paid for your parents' medical bills, your cousin's wedding, your uncle's surgery. I paid for every vacation, every dinner, every piece of clothing on your back. I even paid for the sunflower seeds you've been spitting on my floor. I stood up. What did you give me? Contempt, neglect, a seat in the back of my own car, and a stray dog to replace me. The room was silent. You didn't give me 3 years, Elliot. You took them. I turned to the deputy, who had stepped inside. Please remove them. The deputy looked at Elliot. Sir, I am going to need you to gather your personal belongings and exit the property. You have 10 minutes. Elliot looked at the deputy, at my lawyer, at the security team standing behind them. For the first time, I saw something I'd never seen in Elliot's eyes before. Fear, not fear of me. Fear of the reality he'd been avoiding for 3 years. That without my money, without my name, without my life to leech off of, he was nothing. He grabbed his jacket, his phone, his wallet, the one I'd bought him. The wallet stays, I said. He stared at me. The watch too, and the shoes, and the jacket. Actually. He looked down at himself, and for one humiliating moment, he seemed to realize that almost everything on his body belonged to me. He dropped the wallet on the table, took off the watch, left the jacket on the chair. Then he walked out in his undershirt into the November cold. Donna and Earl followed, clutching each other. Megan was already gone. She'd slipped out during the confrontation, disappearing into the night like the ghost of a relationship that should never have existed. But Elliot stopped at the door. He turned back, and his face was a mask of pure hatred. I want half Haley, half of everything. I'll get a lawyer, a real one, and I'll take you for everything you are worth. I smiled. Read the prenup, Elliot, specifically, the infidelity clause. I held up my phone, showing him the screenshot of Megan's Instagram post. Him and Megan, arm in arm, captioned with a heart emoji and the word family. You might also want to check the security cameras, the ones that recorded you kissing your girlfriend in my living room about 4 hours ago. The color drained from his face. The prenup is very clear, my lawyer added helpfully. In the event of proven infidelity, the offending party forfeits all claims to marital assets. Mr. Dawson, you are not getting half. You are not getting a quarter. You are getting nothing. Elliot stood in the doorway, shaking. Whether from cold or rage, I couldn't tell. You planned this, he whispered. You planned all of it. No, Elliot, you did. I just let you. He opened his mouth to say something else, but the deputy put a hand on his shoulder. Sir, it is time to go. Elliot left, the door closed. And for the second time in 2 days, my house was mine again. Shadow emerged from behind the couch where he'd been hiding during the confrontation. He trotted over to me, tail wagging, and pressed his nose against my hand. I knelt down and held his face in my hands. It is just us now, buddy. He licked my nose. I laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and surprised, like finding a window open in a room you thought had no air. I ordered room service again this time, a bottle of champagne. Shadow got another chicken breast. I got my life back. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. Elliot fought it, of course. He hired a lawyer, a cheap one, paid for with money he'd borrowed from a cousin, and tried to challenge the prenup. He claimed it was signed under duress. He claimed he hadn't understood the terms. He claimed I had manipulated him. The judge was unimpressed. My legal team presented the prenup, signed and witnessed, with documentation showing Elliot had been represented by independent counsel at the time. They presented the security camera footage of Elliot and Megan kissing in my living room. They presented Megan's Instagram post. They presented phone records, text messages, and a timeline of Elliot's relationship with Megan that stretched back well before our separation. The infidelity clause was triggered. Elliot got nothing. No house, no car, no share of the business, no alimony, nothing. He walked out of the courthouse in the same undershirt he'd left my house in because he'd never bothered to buy his own clothes. But I wasn't done. I filed a civil suit for the property he'd destroyed during his tantrum. The antique vase, the damaged furniture, the hole in the drywall, the stained cashmere throw, the total came to just over $200,000. Elliot denied everything. He claimed he'd never touched a thing. Then my lawyer played the security camera footage. Every punch, every kick, every shattered object, captured in high definition, time-stamped, and undeniable. He had nothing to say. The court ruled in my favor. When Elliot refused to pay because he couldn't, the judgment was enforced. The only asset to his name was a small, run-down house his parents owned in their little southern town. It was seized and auctioned to cover the debt. Donna and Earl, who had spent their lives in that house, were forced to move into a one-bedroom rental on the edge of town. Elliot, jobless and broke, moved in with them. At 34, he was living off his parents' Social Security checks, sleeping on their couch, applying for jobs that wouldn't hire him because he had no real skills and a public record of domestic destruction. Even Megan, who had clung to him like a barnacle through the entire marriage, vanished the moment the money dried up. She stopped answering his calls, blocked him on social media, moved on to whatever her next opportunity was. Elliot was alone, and for a while, that was the end of it. 9 months later, I got a phone call. It was from a contact at the local hospital, someone who owed me a favor and knew I'd want to hear this. Megan Holloway had given birth to a son. I sat with that then I made a decision that, looking back, I am not entirely sure was kind. I had someone pass the news to Elliot. He showed up at the hospital within hours, wild-eyed and desperate, convinced the baby was his ticket back to relevance, his proof that he mattered. He burst into Megan's room, demanding to see the child, demanding his rights as a father. Megan looked at him with an expression I imagined she'd been rehearsing, cold, dismissive, and utterly devoid of the softness she'd once performed so convincingly. She reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a document, a paternity test. She slapped it against his chest. "This child isn't yours, Elliot. Don't flatter yourself." He stared at the paper. The words blurred and rearranged themselves, but the conclusion was unmistakable. The father was someone else, a man from her hometown, someone she'd been seeing the entire time she was playing the devoted damsel in Elliot's life. "Who would want a loser like you?" she said, and turned away. So Megan played Elliot the exact same way Elliot played Haley. Used him while he was useful, discarded him when he wasn't poetic. Really, he spent 3 years treating his wife like a service provider, then got the same treatment from the woman he chose over her. The difference: Haley walked away with a dog and a hotel empire. Elliot walked away with nothing. And Megan, she never walked away at all. Something broke in Elliot then. Not the slow, grinding erosion I'd experienced, the kind that wears you down over years until you don't recognize yourself. This was sudden, violent, a complete structural collapse. He lunged. What happened next was pieced together from hospital security footage and witness statements. He grabbed the baby from Megan's arms. She screamed. Nurses came running, but before anyone could reach him, he threw the infant to the ground. The baby died on impact. Then he turned on Megan. He grabbed her by the hair, dragged her from the bed. He punched her, kicked her, found a knife from a fruit basket on the side table, and began stabbing. "I lost everything for you," he screamed. "Everything, and this is what you do to me. If I can't have anything, then neither can you. We'll all go to hell together." By the time security subdued him, the room was unrecognizable. Megan was rushed to emergency surgery. She was pronounced dead 40 minutes later. Elliot was arrested at the scene, covered in blood, still screaming. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The trial lasted less than a week. The security footage was played for the jury. There was no defense that could explain it away. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He would spend the rest of his days behind bars, in a cell smaller than the passenger seat he'd once given away so easily. When I heard the news, I was sitting on the back porch of a new house, one I'd bought for myself, in a quiet town where nobody knew my name or my story. Shadow was lying at my feet, older now, a little heavier, his black coat glossy. He'd grown into a handsome dog, calm, loyal, the kind of companion who never asked for more than you could give and never made you feel like less than you were. I set down my coffee and looked out at the yard. The morning was cool and bright. Birds were singing somewhere down the street. A neighbor was mowing their lawn. I thought about Elliot, about the choices that had led him from a rest stop parking lot to a prison cell, about how a single moment of cruelty, "give your seat to the dog," had set in motion a chain of events that destroyed not just our marriage, but multiple lives. I thought about Megan, about the baby who never had a chance, about the waste of it all, and I thought about myself, about the woman I'd been 3 years ago, quiet, accommodating, desperate to belong to a family that never wanted her, only her wallet. The woman who said nothing, who swallowed every insult, absorbed every slight, and called it love because she was too afraid of being alone to call it what it really was. That woman was gone. I didn't mourn her, but I remembered her, and I was grateful to her, in a way, because she had endured long enough for me to wake up. Shadow lifted his head and rested it on my knee. I scratched behind his ears the way I'd done 1,000 times since that freezing night at the rest stop. You know what is funny, buddy? He looked up at me with those big, dark eyes. Elliot thought he was saving you that night. He thought he was the hero of the story, the man with the big heart who rescued a helpless animal from the cold. He wanted everyone to see how compassionate he was, how noble. Shadow's tail thumped against the porch. But he didn't save you. I did. I am the one who bathed you, fed you, took you to the vet. I am the one who kept you when everyone else forgot you existed. Just like I kept that family afloat for 3 years while they treated me like the help. I took a sip of coffee. The difference is, you were worth saving. People ask me sometimes, friends, colleagues, the occasional journalist who somehow gets my number, whether I regret any of it, whether I feel guilty about how things ended, whether I think I pushed too hard, moved too fast, was too ruthless. I always give the same answer. I didn't destroy Elliot Dawson. Elliot Dawson destroyed himself. I didn't make him leave me at that rest stop. I didn't make him choose Megan over me. I didn't make him kiss another woman in my living room, or punch holes in my walls, or refuse to leave my house. I didn't make him show up at that hospital with violence in his heart. Every single choice was his. All I did was stop absorbing the consequences of those choices. I stopped being the cushion between Elliot and reality. I stepped aside and reality hit him full force. That is not cruelty, that is clarity. Some people will tell you that a good wife endures, that she forgives, that she holds the family together no matter what, because that is what women do. That walking away makes you selfish, and fighting back makes you cold, and protecting yourself makes you a villain. Those people have never been asked to give up their seat for a stray dog. There is one more thing I want to say. After the trial, after the sentencing, after the news coverage died down, and the world moved on to its next tragedy, I received a letter. From Elliot, I almost threw it away. But something, curiosity, maybe, or the last stubborn ember of whatever I'd once felt for him, made me open it. It was short, handwritten. The penmanship was shaky. Nothing like the confident scrawl I remembered from our wedding license. Haley, I know you won't believe me, but I am sorry. Not for the reasons you think. Not because I got caught, or because I am in here, or because I lost everything. I am sorry because I had everything, and I didn't know it. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I treated you like you were nothing. I don't know why. I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I still don't know why. Maybe I am just not a good person. I keep thinking about that rest stop, about the look on your face when I told you to get out of the car. You didn't cry. You didn't scream. You just looked at me, and I could see it the exact moment you stopped loving me. I think about that moment every day. I am not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that what I had, what I threw away. I hope Shadow is doing well. Elliot, I read the letter twice. Then I folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and set it on the kitchen counter. Shadow patted over and sniffed it. Then he looked up at me, waiting. "What do you think?" I asked him. "Should I write back?" he sneezed. "Yeah," I said, "that is what I thought." I picked up the envelope and dropped it in the trash. Some letters don't deserve a response. Some apologies come too late to matter. And some people only learn to see what they had after they've burned it to the ground and are standing in the ashes, wondering why they're cold. Elliot would spend the rest of his life in a concrete box, replaying that moment at the rest stop. The moment he chose a stray dog over his wife. The moment he set the first domino falling. And I would spend the rest of mine on this porch with my coffee and my dog and the quiet, unshakable knowledge that I was worth more than a seat in someone else's car. It has been 2 years now. The hotel business is thriving. I expanded into 3 new properties last year. Boutique places, the kind with character and history. My clients are loyal for the first time in my career. I am building something not because I am trying to fill a void, but because I genuinely love the work. I learned to drive. It took me 6 months, a very patient instructor, and one minor incident involving a mailbox that we don't talk about. But I did it. I have a license now and a car that I chose myself, not flashy, not expensive, just mine. Sometimes I drive with no destination, just to feel the freedom of it. Windows down, radio up, shadow riding shotgun with his ears flapping in the wind. He is my co-pilot now. The seat that Elliot gave away. It is Shadow's permanently, and unlike the humans who once occupied it, he has never once complained about the music, asked me to cook him dinner, or made me feel like I didn't belong in my own life. I haven't dated anyone since the divorce. People ask about that too. Whether I am lonely, whether I am looking, whether I've moved on. As if healing from a marriage like mine is something you do on a timeline, like a project with milestones and deliverables. The truth is, I am not lonely. For the first time in my adult life, I am not lonely. I was lonelier in my marriage than I've ever been on my own. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned, and I spent 3 years learning it the hard way. If love comes again, I'll welcome it, but I won't chase it. I won't shrink myself to fit into someone else's idea of what a wife should be. I won't cook a 20-pound turkey for people who don't say thank you. I won't give up my seat for anyone who wouldn't do the same for me. And I will never ever let someone make me feel like I am worth less than a stray dog. Last Thanksgiving, I hosted dinner at my house. Not the old house, the new one. The one I bought for myself, with the big kitchen, and the wrap-around porch in the yard where Shadow likes to chase squirrels. I invited my staff, my friends, my neighbors. People who had shown up for me when I had nothing to offer them but my company. I cooked the turkey myself, and the stuffing, and the green bean casserole, and the cranberry sauce, and yes, the sweet potato casserole with the marshmallows on top, not because anyone demanded it, not because anyone expected it, but because I wanted to, because cooking for people who love you is a joy, not a punishment. Because feeding someone should be an act of generosity, not servitude. Shadow got his own plate. Turkey, no bones, a little mashed potato, a single marshmallow from the casserole, which he ate with the solemnity of a king accepting tribute. After dinner, we sat on the porch. The air was cool. The stars were out. Someone had brought a guitar, and someone else was telling a story that made everyone laugh. I looked around at the faces, warm, open, genuine, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Home, not a house, not a family name, not a seat in someone else's car. Home, the real kind, the kind you build yourself from the wreck. Shadow was asleep at my feet, snoring softly. I reached down and rested my hand on his back, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. Thank you, I whispered, not to anyone in particular, to all of it, to the rest stop and the cold wind and the moment I finally woke up, to the trooper who drove me home, to the lawyer who fought for me, to the dog who chose me when no one else would, to myself for walking away. The guitar played on. The stars burned bright, and somewhere in a cell with no windows, a man who once had everything sat alone in the dark, thinking about a seat he gave away. I didn't think about him at all. Here is what I want you to sit with. This story isn't really about a dog. It is not even about Megan. It is about a man who looked at his wife, the woman who funded his entire existence, and decided she was the most disposable person in the car. No, his elderly parents, not his high school sweetheart, not a stray animal he'd known for 5 minutes. His wife, the one who paid for the car, the house, the turkey, and the watch on his wrist. She was the one who got left in the cold. And here is the part that is almost funny if it weren't so devastating. Elliot thought he was being generous. He genuinely believed he was the hero rescuing a dog, protecting Megan, honoring his parents. He had cast himself as the compassionate man in a story where his wife was just the budget line. But Haley didn't cry at that rest stop. She didn't beg. She called 911, then she called her lawyer, 2 phone calls. That is all it took to dismantle a 3-year performance. Elliot's letter from prison said he keeps thinking about the exact moment she stopped loving him. Good. He should, because that moment wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud. It was a woman standing in a parking lot, watching her husband open the car door for someone else, and quietly deciding she was done being furniture in her own life. The dog got the seat, but Haley got the house, the business, the car, and the last word: some trades work out better than others. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the person everyone expected to just figure it out? The one who was supposed to smile, accommodate, and never complain? When did you stop? Or are you still sitting in the back seat of your own life, waiting for someone to notice you are uncomfortable? Tell me in the comments, because I think a lot of people heard "just call an Uber" and recognized that voice. And I want to know, what was your rest stop moment?